Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. In today's video, I want to scrapbook these photos. So I took these of my daughter. She was dressed up like a princess and playing in her little castle tent. And they are just adorable photos. I love them. I love the memory of her playing. And I thought, you know what? As soon as I saw the Close to My Heart storybook collection, I thought this would be the perfect paper pack to scrapbook these photos. It's all like fairy tale themed and, castles and unicorns and all that kind of stuff. But then I got it in hand and the colors were a lot more muted than what I was thinking. And they're definitely a lot more muted than my photos. I've scrapbooked a few layouts from this and I love the colors that are in it. But really just this black and white pattern is the only thing that really goes with my photos. So my solution to this was to grab some cardstock and see if I could match the colors in the photos to the cardstock. So the purple here in the blanket, I thought it was pretty close to the thistle color, which is a retired color. And then this dark blue is Bluebird, and I thought that went really nice with the dark blue in the tent. Another option I could use is this periwinkle color. It matches that light kind of purpley blue that's in the tent. I'm not sure how much I like it with the other colors that I have here. This brighter kind of turquoisey blue is Capri, and it's pretty close to the color on the floor of the tent. And I think it generally goes with the blue shades that are on there pretty well. Just going to grab a piece of Glacier here to see if maybe that would match that lighter blue shade. And it could, but it's a little bit dull next to the other brighter blues. So I think I'm happy with those colors, and they all kind of look nice together and they're saturated enough. I also couldn't resist grabbing some holographic paper. The bluish color there is Dreamy and the yellow is called Sunbeam. And I thought they would look really nice just as an accent to these colors. Now the only real pattern paper I'm using is the black and white print from the Storybook collection. I grabbed some picked raspberry because I was trying to find a pink that was as bright as this dress and I had no paper that was that bright. So the Distress ink, not oxide ink, but the Distress ink in picked raspberry was pretty close. Slightly darker, but it was pretty close. And then of course I had to pull in the stamps for this collection. So the Storybook card making and scrapbooking stamp and thin cuts for both. These are so cute. And bonus, stamps are on sale this month and these two are in the sale. So I'll make sure to link those down in the description box for you. All right, let's get started here. I have my two Versamats out, which helps me line everything up. And I'm going to use the Thistle cardstock as my base, and then I cut the White Daisy to 11.5 by 11.5. That's a piece of printer paper that I put under there. I grabbed my Thistle ink as well as these two sets, Perfectly Imperfect and Background Elements. They have a lot of like splatter images, these kind of like really subtle texture images on them. And I thought it'd be nice to use one of those little patterns. This is kind of like dashed lines to create a tone-on-tone pattern. Since I don't have much pattern paper for this layout, I thought it'd be fun to add a little bit of pattern. Now only the very edge of this is going to be showing, so I'm not worried too much about the inside part. It'll be covered by the White Daisy. And I did miss a little bit there, so I had to go back. I do overlap it here and there, but it really doesn't matter if it's perfectly lined up or not. Once you get that white cardstock over top, it's only the very edge that is showing. So I wish I could stamp this fast in real life. Wouldn't that be awesome? And just mask off the last one there to fill in my little gap. And then I'll show you what that pattern looks like up close. So it's just real subtle little tick marks. I went ahead off camera and stamped the other side because I figured you didn't need to see that. And now I'm going to line up these kind of cloud images. So these are off of the SVG collection that goes with the Storybook collection. I love that all the paper suites have an SVG collection that matches them. It really extends what you can make with it. And since they're SVGs, they're not Cricut files, you can use them whether you have a silhouette, I think you can even use them with like the Brother ScanNCut. So that really makes them a little bit more versatile. So I got these all laid out, and then I'm thinking that they're looking a little plain. With having only the one being a pattern, I wanted to add a little something more. So I'm going to use this splatter stamp here from the background element set, and I'm just going to make sure I put that on some printer paper, and then I'm just going to cover this whole thing with the splatters using Capri ink on Capri cardstock. So it's not super stark, it's kind of subtle and gives a little bit of pattern, a little bit of texture to it. If you prefer less pattern, less detail, you could definitely leave these plain and I think it would be totally fine. But you know me, more is more. So I stamped it up, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the other one off screen, and then I'm going to ink the edges. So I'm using still the Capri ink, and I'm just sponging the edges. I'm not going to come in too far. I just want to add a little bit of definition. And you know how it goes. Once I did that Capri one, the bluebird little cloud looked too plain. So now I'm like, okay, what pattern am I going to use? There's this one that kind of has really small crosshatch sort of lines on it. So I decided that would be subtle. I'm going to do the same thing, tone on tone, bluebird ink on the bluebird cardstock, and just cover the whole thing. I know the very bottom of these isn't going to be seen, but I wasn't sure how far it would be covered or exposed, so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to stamp the whole thing, and then I don't have to worry about it. And you know, the nice thing about this being a subtle pattern with tone-on-tone inking is that if I didn't stamp it perfectly, it kind of overlapped or was crooked or whatever. Doesn't really matter once you get to the finished piece. So here I am laying out my little clouds and just marking the top two so that I get them spaced the right distance apart when I'm putting on adhesive. I'm going to go ahead and stick them down. I did ink the edge of the bluebird one with bluebird ink, and then the white pattern paper one, I inked the edge with thistle, because after inking the other two edges, that one needed something. So I just used thistle to ink the edge of that one. Once I get this left page done, I'm going to use that to help me line up the right page so they're approximately the same kind of height. And I'm also going to flip this over and trim off any extra that's hanging over the edge. And I did go back with a little bit of ink and touch up any areas that look like they needed more ink. Those are all stuck down now, and I'm going to start with my photos. So I was going to use ATG, and then I remembered score tape works way better on holographic paper. The holographic paper is kind of like plasticky feeling, so a lot of adhesives don't stick to it very well, and I don't like using liquid adhesive with it, so I'm using score tape because it's super strong. As you can see, I only had one little corner stuck down, and it was really hard to get off. So I did a super thin, like 1/8 of an inch border of the holographic. That's the Dreamy holographic. And then I'm putting more score tape on the back side, and I have another 1/8 inch of a border of black cardstock. So the black piece is actually 3x4, and then I trimmed down my other pieces to be smaller than that. Now I went ahead off camera and did my 4x6 pictures the same way. I love how that holographic paper just kind of twinkles around the edge. There's not a huge border, but it just adds a little bit of extra shimmer. And I could have gutted that paper, but I just didn't feel like it. So there is a little bit of waste behind my photos. I'm going to start just laying my elements out on the page, starting with my title, which is Princess Isabella. Princess is cut from the Sunbeam holographic, and Isabella is cut from the Dreamy holographic. Then I have my other stamped images, a large white circle for my journaling. It's about 3.5 inches. And then this little crown, it's going to float around the page, and I'm going to try it in several different places. I just wanted 3 different images that were stamped. And then I have that beautiful rainbow die cut. That one is from Paige Evans. So I'm going to move my pages off to the side for a second and grab all the things that need to be colored or put together. So this rainbow, I created a solid backing piece for it. And I could have covered it with like an adhesive sheet or something, but I decided just to do a bunch of strips of my ATG so that most of it was sticky enough that it will hold on to all the pieces I'm going to add. So I'm just tucking in the ends of that ATG tape that had kind of gone over the edge, and filling in any little areas where I didn't think there was enough to kind of hold on to that outline. It's a pretty skinny outline, and I didn't want to mess around with trying to glue it on. You could use liquid adhesive for this as well, but since I'm going to paper piece all the inside, I figured this would maybe be easier. So I'm just kind of pressing everything down into place, trying to get it as lined up as possible with that backing piece. And now I have clouds that fit inside of it that I cut out of white glitter paper. So they're nice and subtle, but still glittery, which is cool. And then I have all the kind of arches of the rainbow. This one here I inked with that Distress ink to get the right color of pink. I have Thistle, the Bluebird, and then the Capri. This is basically like doing a puzzle. You just have to like pop the pieces into it. And then I cut one ray out of the Sunbeam holographic paper. And then I brought in some orange, the Nectarine cardstock, and then that pink piece that I'd inked up with the ink. I love how this rainbow turned out. It's so much fun, and it's a nice big embellishment for my page. For my images, I'm going to color them with my Tri-Blend markers. So I have Pink Violet Blend, Bright Pink Blend, Ice Gray Blend, and Burnt Orange Blend. I love using these markers because they make coloring super simple. I have stamped my images on White Daisy cardstock with Intense Black ink because Intense Black works with alcohol markers. A lot of black inks or inks in general don't because they smudge when the alcohol marker touches them, but the Intense Black works really good. So I am doing something a little bit different today. I am covering my whole image in basically little polka dots. So it's kind of like he has purple chicken pox. And I started with the darkest at the bottom first, and then the medium, and now I'm going into the light. And all the colors, I sped it up really fast because I didn't want to bore you with a lot of coloring, but I am just coloring in lots of polka dots. And you'll see when I hold it up that you can actually see some distinction between them. There's some white showing through. There's some of all three colors showing. I didn't like dot them so close together that it kind of looks like one solid area. I wanted to leave some gaps between the dots so that it actually looks like this fun texture. I do go back with the medium and the dark as needed to kind of fill in. My highlight area was a little bit too big, so I wanted to bring the darker colors in a little bit more. Basically, you can just keep playing with this until you're happy with your image. You just want to make sure that you leave some lightness there. You don't want to completely cover up your highlight. On the wing, I colored the whole thing with the lightest shade, and then I am just bringing in the dark and the medium to shade the inside parts of the wing. I should probably mention too, I used Pink Violet Blend for the majority of the little dragon, and now here on its tummy I'm using the Burnt Orange Blend. And I did end up using all three shades, but I used the darkest shade very sparingly. I kind of went medium light, and then I went back and added a little bit of dark and then blended that out with the medium light, but I didn't want to get too heavy-handed with that one. So there you can see my little dragon and all the texture. I think that looks really fun, and then you have the contrast of the smooth wings and the smooth blending on the tummy as well. I'm going to repeat those same two colors on this crown. So the crown, the reason why I added it is because I wanted 3 stamped images to kind of spread out around my layout. I wanted to have that embellishment repeated. So even though they're different images, all 3 are stamped, all 3 are colored, and I just thought that would bring better balance. So I just did a really quick coloring job on there, and then I'm going to go into my castle here. I'm going to do the flags in all 3 colors, so the orange, the purple, and then the bright pink. And then the main part of the castle, this is all going to be the ice gray blend. And I'm doing the same thing that I did on the dragon with all the little dots. So I'm starting with the darkest shade first, and there are a few dots on the image, so I'm following that as a guide, and anywhere that's kind of on the right side, I'm making it more shadowed, and then more on the left is a little bit brighter with less shadows. And in kind of the center of the columns, I'm blending out to hardly any polka dots in the like light gray color. So I go dark, medium, light, just like I did on the dragon, but I'm not covering the whole castle. The middle area of each of these sections is left pretty white with just like a few polka dots of the lightest gray shade. Now, if you struggle with coloring or you don't find it that enjoyable, you should totally try coloring in polka dots, basically. It's also called pointillism. I just enjoy it because it's easy. It's maybe not necessarily fast because you have to do a lot of these little dots to fill in, an area if you're coloring a fairly big image. But the final effect, I think, is really cool. Here, I was trying to find a blue for the top. So I went with the blue turquoise blend. I thought it matched the Capri color pretty good, pretty closely, and kind of went with the rest of my page. So just kind of pop the top there, and then I'm doing a few little details with the darkest gray shade. And I decided to fill in the bricks as well, and I'm using the lightest of the grays for this. Now here is a close-up look at that finished castle. I think that's just so much fun. If you wanted a little bit more contrast, you could use the ice gray shades, which is like a darker version of the same color, and that would work really good too. Next, I have some hearts that I cut out on the Cricut in various sizes, and I use a strip of white cardstock just as like a little handle, so I have something to hold on to. Put a little bit of adhesive, my ETG adhesive, down on there, and then stuck the white heart on top of the adhesive so that it's not going to move around. And now I'm using the dark shade of the bright pink blend. It's the darkest shade, and I'm just covering the whole thing. Then I'm going to grab that Picked Raspberry Distress ink and one of my blending brushes. I'm just going to deepen up the edges to add a little bit of dimension to these. And I repeated this on all of the hearts, cut them in a few different sizes so that I could layer them up and kind of create little clusters with them. And this is just a super easy way to make the exact color of pink that I wanted to match her dress in my photos, because I just did not have any paper that was that hot of a pink. And this little handle of cardstock really works awesome to keep my shape in place, but I don't end up putting fingerprints all over the piece, and my fingers aren't covered in pink ink, which is a win. So now I'm just going to bring my pages back in, figure out where all my pieces are going, and then I'm deciding that I think I need a little bit of ink in the background. So I debated like doing some splattering, and then I decided to do some blending with an ink blending brush. I love these brushes. They give you a super soft application of ink. Now you can see where I first put the brush down, I do get, those kind of circle shapes. I could avoid that by starting on a piece of scrap paper first, but I just did it right where my photo was going to be. I knew it would be hidden. Now, my lighting is quite bright, so you're not seeing the full effect of this Capri ink. It's looking a little bit more blown out on the video than it is in person. You don't see the full effect. It basically has this nice kind of blue haze or blue clouds kind of behind where my photos are. And I just wanted to make sure that all the edges were nice and soft. So by starting in the center and working outwards, I knew I wasn't going to have any like big splotches of ink where they could be seen. I am speeding through this part because I want you to see where I'm putting the ink, but I don't want to bore you with like long segments of just me ink blending away. Because there is such a light application of color with these brushes, it can take some time to build it up if you want it very dark. So that's something to keep in mind too. Usually when I want a heavy application of ink, I use like the ink blending tool with the foam on it. Then you can add a lot more ink very quickly. Now I decided I wasn't done with this background yet. So I grabbed this little like paint swash kind of stamp from that same Perfectly Imperfect stamp set. Honestly, you guys, the Perfectly Imperfect and the background elements, if you don't have them, you should definitely grab them while they're on sale in March because I use them so much. This other one is a little tiny splatter stamp that's also from Perfectly Imperfect, and I use it a ton too because it's a cluster of little splatters. So instead of like splattering with a paintbrush, you can stamp on your splatters. And I love the control of it being so small. You could definitely use a larger splatter stamp as well, but all of that is in Thistle. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I use the Thistle ink for that as well. Now you can see I'm starting to move my embellishments around, try and decide where those pink hearts are going because they are vivid. They are very bright. They definitely match the pink in her dress, but I want to be careful where I put them so that they're not, clustered too closely together. I decided I needed one more little ink swash there with the Thistle ink and the little splatters. I'm not done with that splatter stamp yet, you guys. I wanted to put some around the little cloud here on the rainbow. I decided not to try and put the ink swash anywhere else because it's pretty heavy. It's kind of has a lot of weight to it, and I thought I'd keep it light around the rainbow and just add the splatter stamp. I did get this idea for having that like wash of ink coming out from behind the photos from my friend Katie. She did that on a recent layout that she did for the Creative Design Team 1-year anniversary celebration. I will link that video down in the description if you want to go check it out. I thought that was brilliant, having the ink and then the splatters. So I just had to borrow that idea here. So I went ahead off camera and I stuck everything down. Stuck down my photos. I did my journaling on that circle and stuck it down. I tucked in that little sticker that says Drama Queen from the storybook sticker sheet. And those hearts, I decided to move them up instead of being below the dragon, and I cut a couple of clouds from my Cricut and also inked the edges with Capri ink. And then that little dragon is going to get pop dotted on top. So I like how that turned out a little bit better. Having the hearts down below him just was not working for me. And I am sticking both parts of my title down flat. The word princess is down flat, and as well as Isabella's name. Now, Princess Isabella, it's so funny, that is what she calls herself. She's like, I am Princess Isabella. And she just loves dressing up and being a princess. She's obsessed with Cinderella right now. This is basically all what my journaling is talking about. And I just wanted to capture, the little things that she says and these memories while they're fresh in my mind, because we are in the thick of it right now. We are just starting to love all the princesses. I decided to put my pink heart up there with a sticker from the sticker sheet that says cutie. And then I felt like I needed a third point of embellishment to have that visual triangle. I had basically two really big embellishment clusters. I have a couple strips of cardstock there that I cut into banners, and then a sticker from the sticker sheet, and then also my little crown, which is my third item that was colored. Over on the right-hand page, I did add the Your Majesty sticker that's from the sticker sheet, and I had debated adding another sticker behind the castle, but then I felt like it was just getting to be too much. I wanted some of the blues to still show through and not be too covered up. So most of my embellishments are down flat. A couple of the hearts are pop dotted, the dragon is pop dotted, but I didn't want it to be too crazy dimensional. And this is where I'm going to leave it. I debated adding some little like glittery stars or some other kind of, enamel dot. And I decided, you know what? This is enough. I think this is enough. I love how this is embellished. I love the little colored images that are on there. And of course, I love having really large photos. I think it's nice to have the big 4x6 photos that kind of balance out all those really big design elements and embellishments. And of course, that hit of holographic paper when it hits the light and it just shimmers, it's definitely magical too. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you did, please hit the like button so that YouTube knows to share it with more people. And also make sure you check out the playlist on the screen if you want to watch some more scrapbooking process videos. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.